On the outer perimeter. Inside of that, I'm going to do snail trail, which is like shells, but done with a straight tip. Then inside that's going to be rosettes. That's going to be done with the star tip. And then the pearls are just a little grouping of pearls in the center with the straight tip. So really, very basic piping here, but it definitely takes some critical work to make sure they come out looking good. In order to do shells, I like to hold my bag on an angle, about a 45, and what I do is I squeeze out a bulb, and then I pull back and stop squeezing as I'm pulling back. And you get a nice clean shell with a bulb, and it tapers down to a point. So, a bulb again, and pull out till it tapers back. Bulb, pull out till it tapers back. So as I get into a rhythm, you'll see that I'm getting this nice looking shell border. Now, a lot of people do their shells a little differently than I do. I've seen people do this where they start squeezing, they do a full overlap, and they do a shell like that. I find the overlap to be distasteful. It has too much height. I think it really looks it looks too obvious to me. I like to have a nice clean bulb, and when you have a nice clean bulb, you'll end up with a nice, just a thick area and a thin taper. These shells can also be used to make things like fleur-de-lis and other forms. But for a basic shell border, again, squeeze and then stop squeezing, and let the material just sort of taper out and break off, and overlap them ever so slightly just to cover up the tail of the last one, just to cover up the tip. Now, if you're having a lot of difficulty with your board moving, that's why I'm holding this still right now. You can anchor this down somehow. I find one of my favorite ways of anchoring down my board is to put a little bit of icing down and stick my board down. You know, that holds it still. It's not as heavy as a cake, so it's going to have, it's going to move on it because it's so light. This last one.
Do you think it'd be easier to work from the inside out?
You could, if you like. It'll make it heavier by the time you get to the outside. This thing will be holding itself down to a certain point. While we're working with the star tip, let's go to rosettes. By the way, if this gets in your way, take a pair of scissors and snip it off. I think you'll find it's much easier. Rosettes are nothing more than a little circle, just like you did with your Spritz cookies. All we're going to be doing is making a little circle and then cutting it off. A little circle, cutting it off. We're not looking to go beyond the circle. We're just looking to go around once. And as soon as you get to the end of your circle, stop squeezing, and it'll just cut itself off. So a little circle, stop squeezing, and it cuts off. Looking for perfect little rosettes. Rosettes should resemble a rose. That's why we call them that. Now, I personally like to go counterclockwise. That's my personal preference. If you're left-handed, you might decide to go the other direction. Whatever direction you want to go, rosettes look just great either way. If I try to go the other direction, they look just as nice. But you have to be, you got to find which way it works best for your hands and what works best for your the way your brain looks at this stuff. Some people must do it clockwise. Some people must do it counterclockwise. The other border is the snail trail. It's like shells, a bulge, and then taper out, and you get this beautiful little shell without a straight tip. So we're going to go bulge and pull away, bulge, pull away, bulge, pull away. So I call snail trail. And again, if you stop squeezing, it will just taper out to a point.
Do you mind differently, like you saw the other day? Is that okay?
Yeah, you're just going for nice, clean forms. When you try to do these, you just try to get nice, clean, evenly sized forms. That's the whole point of nice piping, is to get a good, clean form that looks the same every time. Now, I do each one individually like this for the purposes of demonstration, but when you get going, you'll find yourself just going in a nice rhythm. You start to find your rhythm. And that's great. It's exactly what you should be doing. When it comes to your final item is pearls. Pearls, you're going for little spheres, little round planets. So I typically hold mine on an angle. I like to hold my tip on a 45. I pipe out until I get a nice round little sphere, and I just push away I push away up so it cuts it off. And I find, to me, that works the best. But yeah, I'm trying to avoid the Hershey Kiss thing too much. Hershey Kiss is, you know how people do it. They'll pipe like this, and they'll get that Hershey Kiss. That's why I try not to go straight up and down. If I'm trying for that, I can get it if I really want a Hershey's Kiss shape. Like there's a certain type of candy, a certain type of truffle that you can use, or you can make, that is made with butter ganache. And what we do is we actually go straight up and down and try to get a pointed little, I call them volcanoes, where you create a little volcano, and then on top of the dark chocolate ganache we put a little white chocolate on top of that. But traditionally they're called something different. And you may have heard of them. Have you ever seen the movie Chocolat? It's a wonderful movie. They actually call it Nipples of Venus, but that's, you know, that's what they're called. Yeah, in Italy they make these and they call them Nipples of Venus. But that harkens back to the old days, before Christianity, when